Dhamma Jingye So Sa Chi Chu Dao Zu Di Chu Na La Cha Chu Ma Du Na Ni Ga Zu Chi Da Di Chu Ni Di Be Chu Na Di Ro La Ben Je Sa Ge Zhu Ma Shu Sa Chi Chu Dao Zu Di Chu Na La Cha Chu Ma Du Na Ni Ga Zu Chi Da Di Chu Ni Di Be Chu Na Di Ro La Ben Je Sa Ge Zhu Ma Shu 学到做给做那了，长出不多那里个做去，大概去年一个做那的，罗拉北京草原路吧，说心就是就是面多抓，那那些你点点把天，上天心都没得过，也都给让到心了去吧，说也大，不都让那个大，当这样那样，还没比。Leader of the Chiki from the origin of the speak of the dollars of the but I knew one of the might have one of the one and the one along the body in the eager. Yeah, the one that the other future you are isn't for one of them. But you give a vision of the thing that I'm not shooting or different programs. Please adjust your sitting posture according to the 7 meditative postures of Vairocana. Think, all sentient beings have been my mothers. All sentient beings have been my mothers, not just once, but numberless times. All sentient beings are as kind as my mother in this life. Even though all kind other sentient beings want happiness and do not want even a small suffering, due to mistakenly engaging with objects of adoptions and abandonment, they do not experience any happiness but suffering. In our minds, sincerely generate loving kindness towards all kind mother sentient beings by thinking, how nice it would be if all kind mother sentient beings were to have excellent happiness and the causes of excellent happiness that are virtues. May they have excellent happiness and its causes. I will cause them to have excellent happiness and its causes. Lama deity, please bless me to be able to do so.
이제 뭐하기나 생기게 되다 그렇지 내가 누군지 좀 먹어라 따라 좀 그렇지 또 왔다 좀 대신 너무나 진지로 어떻게 먹어야 되는지 모르겠어.
Next, we generate compassion towards all suffering mother sentient beings by thinking, how nice it would be if all mother sentient beings were free from all suffering and the causes of suffering that are non-virtues. May they be free from all suffering and its causes. Our freedom from all suffering and its causes. Lama deity, please bless me to be able to do so.
뭐하기나 생기게 제 고아들에서 뭐를 그 코스하고 그녀랑 그때 힘내면서 하다 보면 진짜 많이 되는 내가 그것은 내가 나는 지금 빠진 스피치 공부하는 필요하셔 어디서 내가 좀 찾으세요.
Next, we generate bodhicitta. First, we ask ourselves, who should take the responsibility to free all mother sentient beings from the sufferings of samsara and lower realms? I should take the responsibility to free all mother sentient beings from the sufferings of samsara and lower realms. Even though I should take the responsibility, I do not have the ability to place them in the state of perfect, complete enlightenment now. Who has such abilities? Only those who have achieved the state of perfect, complete enlightenment have the abilities to do so. Therefore, for the sake of all mother sentient beings, by all means, I will achieve the precious state of enlightenment.
그게 통지도 사실 공부하고 샤워 내 세고도 되는 나도 내가 되지 뭔가 지금 특별한 거 공부 방식 나도 참 생각이 내가 되지 되게 로직을 쓰나 지금 교수님서 무슨 문제가 생기는
Next, we generate all-encompassing yoga mind, the aspiring conventional bodhicitta that thinks, for the sake of all mother sentient beings, I will achieve the state of enlightenment. These transform into the aspect of a complete mundis at one's heart. The ultimate bodhicitta, which is one's mind becoming one taste with the emptiness of inherent existence of all phenomena. These transform into the aspect of a white five-pronged vajra on top of the mundis.
여분이랑 지금 뭐 지금 차트를 땡기 지금 차트를 땡기 지금 지금 다 캐나 같은 거. 이게 진진 지와 된다. 이게 무슨 내가 맞을 것 같은 여분이랑 지금
Next, we meditate on emptiness for a short while. The self and the aggregates do not exist as inherently one. If they were inherently one, they there would be they would necessarily establish as partless one. If they were partless one, they would be false. It would be pointless to assert a self. Self would become many. Self would subject to productions and disintegration. It would be unreasonable to remember past lives. Karma one has done would be wasted. One would meet with karma that one has not done. Therefore, the self and the aggregates do not exist as inherently one.
우리는 차리스는 제메 대기 두기니 진짜 다들 하나야 모두에서 이쁘게 도와요. 싸우고 있어요.
The self and the aggregates also do not exist as inherently different. If they were inherently different, they would necessarily be established as unrelatedly others. Therefore, the self and the aggregates also do not exist as inherently one. Hence, is empty of inherent existence.
为了不学习，是在长期的上级工作的话，一切的防备学习，然后第一开始的那个是不要接受。
Set a good motivation. For the sake of all mother sentient beings, I will achieve the state of enlightenment. For this, I will listen to the holy teaching and practice fully in order to benefit sentient beings.
Mm. 可是唱的你们明年不能对吧？想法是，我
So to continue, the outline is strive for the antidotes to afflictions. So we continue, verse 42, line and fourth line. So it is under the outlines of striving for the antidotes to afflictions.
我这里是讲的，你的牛梦熊把了，什么都不学，你的老大成就，特别是你有这这些，你这个记录的这个等等学一些。
So verse 42, third line, says, since this is the case, I should never withdraw from vanquishing the afflictions. I shall adhere to these, and resenting them, I shall meet them in battle.
那这个等等的看的，那年不嘛了，年不嘛了什么帮我一样，对那的年不比年不熊把了，那大的那个上班的有啊，可能那个吧，没些可能。你把说，你的节目完了，节目上班了，那你到的话，最嘛去吧，那上班的就要看一那呗，那你通过你什么去这个马里似的，就不往早点说，
Regarding these afflictions, they are worth abandoning. So when we destroy these afflictions, or when we eliminate these afflictions, we shall never withdraw from vanquishing or eliminating the afflictions. So we shall all the time and persistently in our attitudes and behavior, in attitudes and in our behavior, abandon these afflictions.
那你们去看到你搞到上学你不看到看到你们完了什么都往这边小个身上，那你们今年问的了，那行今年今年把那个就是晓得了，这个大家都晓得吧？你们今年把那开心起的，跟今年不点来点不行，你们了看是，你们的了怕，真是看是，但是哇，但是哇，越来这了，你们不是怕，越那你们的了看到啊是。 是吧？你不得但是这个年末了，你们这个年末这个速度，得了搞啊行不起，记住啊，得了搞啊行不起，得了搞啊行不起，这年末的这是帮你了，恰当的，帮下了，肯定就把你些当不得，不得是吧？年末了，行的，年末了，这样的点的，现在还是准备等的，这个年末的话，我呀的，有呀，一切不认识我。
So he says, I shall adhere to this. So adhere to this refers to antidotes. And adhere to antidotes means that I shall cherish these antidotes and I shall appreciate these antidotes and resenting them. So them refers to afflictions and I shall meet them in battle. So means that we shall cherish and appreciate those antidotes to the afflictions, and then we should see those afflictions and enemy, then we want to resent them, then we want to abandon them, and then we want to discard them.
他现在导播里我的，导播的搞的这个流程呢，他刚才俺说，年末了恰去先把是我呀，年末了看看，先把他年末把这个放假了，那看到这个事，那今年的来说，那个年末了，他先了，放假年末放假得了， 방화다 킬러지 킬러지 비트리게 빠지기 너무 봐 제발이나 빠지기 너무 봐 차로 말이 해서 나 똑같은 게 뭐야 nembola chwa shemba chewa ta nemu ko pa nemu de la pa cha la dan yi ba so ne ti kin do jimba ni ji kin do jimba ti cheba ina ni jimba te pa cha ke nemu ba ni ya se ma ji nemu ta ke to pas ti skin wa to pas ti wa
So in relation to this these lines, it says one should attach or adhere, one should attach and adheres to antidotes, and then uh, 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 get angry at one should get angry at those objects of abandonment, which are objects of which are afflictions, and then we should resent them. So here it says, I shall attach and adhere to antidotes. Then I shall uh, uh, get angry at the objects of abandonment, which is afflictions, and resent them. If I, in this way, are they not the objects of abandonment, the afflictions?
而且呢，你的那个早的你也，你看你我把有一些嘛都说的早的经验的嘛，你必须说。
Yeah. So the questions or doubt is, do they not become the objects of abandonment, the afflictions? So in relation to this doubt, verse 43, third and fourth line, it says, but afflictions such as these types destroy afflictions and are not included.
对对对对，是吧？放下来跟他看着自己，放下了，放下来看着自己，放下来看自己，是吧？放下来看着自己。关系面膜了，对，先把紧的是吧？现在先把紧的对比，那么点点也黏膜巴是，但黏膜巴是，我说比黏膜巴大些，这是吧？那么点点黏膜巴的，是吧？那么点点黏膜巴的，这讲的啊，那黏膜是你必须的嘛，都关键是哦，也是，或者你给他打个脸是吧？你讲的那个你先把它黏膜了，先把它，关键了，看能怎么办？现在给他比，是吧？你没办法，你没办法，那你没办法，但是你就是啥意思？你的呢？人力确实多把这边毛的，方向不是多把嘛，也是。
So just now we say the antidotes or the antidotes is that which abandons, right? So these antidotes abandons afflictions. So these antidotes are that which abandons, and then afflictions are objects of abandonment. So when we say here I shall adhere and attach to these antidotes, and I shall get angry at those objects of abandonment, the afflictions, and resent them. So on these attachment, adherence, hatred, and resentment, the objects of abandonment, are they not afflictions? So they may be labeled as afflictions and appears like an afflictions. However, they are not afflictions because they are the antidotal class that destroys afflictions. Because they are the antidotal class that destroy afflictions.
那别个人你来人就是我看到，用在地点就是了，不多。别个人用在放在细节的地呢，现在的是我是，你放下谁把呢？放你有这么个别，也是放下谁在的现在的了，你不定的报告嘛的是，报告个别也是，别个的些细节现在的也是，但别个他都到的用在，你现在的，你不了先不是吧？你不先把它，对吧？放下去，平时有了啊。방편집에네발로종자라이야기하는인간본다고제설보니까그거되겠어 누가 시야 돼. 이 용자 해봐. 방자 세바다. 방에 이렇게 먹으면 돼. 그래서 이거 방 차이 제가 그래 양자가 느끼는 때 tempo 때문에 그 방에 좀 말해서 그러다. 그래서 해서
And in the commentary, it says that later it says that they are the objects of abandonment. So they are the objects of abandonment, like the attachment, appearance, hatred, and resentment in this context. So in later context, then it says that they are the objects of abandonment. So what does it mean by they later become the objects of abandonment is, so you once those objects of abandonment are exhausted, once they are exhausted, then there's no need to strive to abandon them by applying antidotes. So it means that once those afflictions, the objects of abandonment are exhausted, and there's no need to strive to abandon them by applying antidotes through applying antidotes. Yeah. So then the next outline is striving never to come under the power of afflictions. Next outline is striving never to come under the power of afflictions. Under this outline, again, one wonders. So in order to abandon the afflictions, is it not excellent that infinite multitudes of suffering follow the afflictions? So, and then the root verse says, I would rather be burned and killed and even have my head cut off than to ever bow down to the enemy that is the afflictions in any way. So the verse says that I would rather be burned and killed than even have my head cut off, right? So even if my head is cut off and drop on the ground, then is only abandoning this life only. So it means that I would rather just give up the body of this life through my head being cut off. So if your head is cut off and drop on the ground, then what you lose is only this life or this body.
대단 팀바 맞지 대단 지고 맛있다 대단 지고 맛이 대단 지고다 조고 쉐바이나 그래서 그 대단시 돈이 저다 있는 게 막 지금 그분이 수수 된다 그 찬사도 맞지가 내 지금 해서 지금 해서 동안 가장 뭐 지야 거기 지금 해서
So we are talking in this life, right? So if our head were to cut off by someone else, or if we were to fall off cliff, or if we were to kill by someone else, so what we lose is only these lives or this body. So we have to identify the one that obstructs us from attaining or obtaining our desired goals, and the one that creates multitudes of suffering, especially those sufferings in hell, and the one that harms us. Then we have to identify them as the afflictions. So this enemy of afflictions is the one that creates obstructions, is the one that causes to suffer, and the one that harms us as well. So we should never let ourselves fall under the control of this enemy of afflictions, and then we shouldn't act in accordance with this affliction, and we shouldn't associate and we shouldn't befriend afflictions.
그때 저기 간단 가서 그 수비기 세리게 다다고 지금 넣어줘. 수비기 세리게 다다고 수비 있는 거 가지고 통화하는 라바는 줘야 돼. 통화는 줘야 요래야 이거로. 이 다데 있는 오지에 상관이 뭐이나. 다 세리게 나서
그래 살롱.
다 나고 그때는 하나 뭐살 넘바이나. 세리게 나시 이다다. 나와 당게 해마도 누가 주는마 제가 뭐가 되게 줘야 돼요. 막 이제 세대생들이 해서 얘들이와 영무부터 이미 말했어 보러와 영무도 자리 비 말했어 무슨 비비 수진지 자리다 영무 자리 제가 잡았다 와 이게 제가 이게 그래서
등이 기타를 속여 말아 지대메다.
이게 같은 가서도 지와 제머는 막 이게 자타 양이 뭐야게 등이 계속 오요 말했어 지와 새로 먹는 거 세인들 가서 वो ये तुम्हें इन आगे बहुत ही सुपर है ऐसे सेंटर दुआ में वैसे लोग मरदा
So we have to understand the difference between a physical enemy in these lives and the enemy of afflictions. So if the physical enemies in these lives that has hands, legs, and etc., and then if these enemies were to kill us, and then what we lose is we experience suffering. However, what we lose is only these lives. So what we lose is only these lives itself, and they are able to cause multitudes of suffering in future lives and lifetimes after lifetimes. So they are unable to do so. So as compared to enemy of afflictions, so they are able to cause multitudes of sufferings in many lifetimes.
어떻게 제는 되니까 어떻게 제가 얼마 세디치나 어런지 좀 좋아하는 수나 내내 봐서 얼마 좀 됐어요. 와
비비 빵나?
그런 게 너무 좋아하는 거 신자이나
비비가 수고라서
좋아. 너랑 이제 너무도 봐 좋아하는 수바이나 하나 너무도 보아는 내가 제불에서 오더라. 돈 많아서 와. 영웅들 때 얼마 전에 자차 마음보다 수도 되게 반갑 누가는 집에 그래서 영웅도 봐 해봐 속으래 이거 뭐 제불에 해서 오더라. 아니 뭐 제불에서 다들만 튀기다가 레오. 그런 게 이제 영웅들 봐 요네 수원에 봐 신고지네. 이게 요 말에서 담아도 된다. 우리 유자가 되는 내사 요 말에서 와. 내사 영웅 좋아. 아니 영웅들 봐 싸우는 거 내가 수작이나 영웅 내가 보면 됐어. 요 말에서 그러고 하데 될러디 내가 다 얼마 잡았으니까 가나 좋아해 되고 이 매번에 어디 영웅 레인지 네 이 수사이나 이게 내가 나시 이번에는 될러에 내가 신게 이게 같이 누구 말에 해야지 그거는 그런 좀 이제 팀에 대한 나시 예 나야 이번에 우리 나야 내가 지금 누구 말에 해야지 그런 팀에 지금 말에 해야지 이게 비다가 그런 팀에 나시 슬링 말에 해야지 그러면 얼마 자원만 비시키고 뭐 못이려 되게 자
Next outline is, if afflictions in one's continuum are uprooted, there will be no support for them to abide. I repeat, if afflictions in one's continuum are uprooted, there will be no support for them to abide. So under this outline, again, someone may wonder, so although afflictions may be expelled once, like worldly enemies, they gain capability and once again come and return and harm. So is it right to just act accordingly? So again, is someone's qualms or questions or wonder. So they think that also although afflictions may be expelled once, then like those worldly enemies, they will gain capability and then they will return and then once again they will harm us. So is it right to just act accordingly? So because previously we mentioned that the one that obstructs our attainments of desirable, and the one that creates sufferings, and the ones that harms us is afflictions, right? So and then so we have to get rid of them, we have to eliminate them, and then we have to discard them. So and then if we discard them, then there will be no place to stay. So and then this wonder come under this outline. So the afflictions might become doesn't maybe like worldly enemies, and then they will come back and harm again, right?
What is how do you must order from a door in the shoe? You said how the knee also, but in the should go. The holders did and drama is it. See, should look at you. I think what the share is to.
Under this outline is verse 45. It says, ordinary enemies, when expelled from one country, simply settle down in another and embrace it. And when their capability is recovered, they then return. By the way of this enemy, my afflictions is different.
How the world condemn us today? And you didn't come up with that, so Marias, and didn't come up with that, so Marias. Ah, come up in the day with Down, Meiji, by in that part. So that the little city door, and that, Nandesa, equal contribution with you right now. Lumba never should start another Lumba than the day much of Lumba Shindal Mapia, Lumba Shindal Mapia, the little one, the legitimate door. Bak wayna da su ko da ji pa pizza de ta pa pizza de ko ye pa ya de ko pe no pa ta ko da su ko che mo de ya ja ni pa le de ya ja se ko pa pi ne de ka de ja ga su le ni ni yo yi sa wa su le ni o da yi de ni ne su yo su ne su le ne ye na shi ni pa ni ro ni de na shi ni pa ye shi po ni ne de le je shi do wo yes ina da nyu mu da de da wa yes na de wa ta ji de da de de se wo ni pa chimbo ni ni ja ke su de yes da su de yes de ba ina nyu mu da de da wa za ni ma re yes kon de chi chi ma je no
So to answer the qualm or questions or wonder, so he says is not the same. It's not the same because ordinary worldly enemies, when expelled once from one country, so for example, when they lose a battle or when they lose a battle, then they will expel from from their own country. So then these group of people, and then they will go to other places or go to other country, and they will settle down, and then they will occupy the place, and then when they regain their capability, and then they will come back and seek revenge. So, however, this is this enemy of afflictions is not the same as the worldly enemies.
Nothing that was not right to do. But you what so and should have changed. In by a less change against your maris, you put in a sheet of by a sigmaris. Yes, your mare, you need to get it. I just near your maris. Also, that you move the sabi that you have a pond. You move the sabi that you have a pond. You move the young just change for your. You move just get here for your man. And then listen, yes, for your mother. 被领导学嘛做，所谓的每一期的刚不说啥的话，每一期的刚不说啥的，上怕断，我卡这家这个经理卡这到位呢，我你不接听吧，不接用，我你不中啥，我你不接，你不中没啥的话，没啥的话，那哪些的， 너무 대배 소원이 봐 유서리 보면 고치다니 완전 그렇지 니가미네 그 양자 때문에 내가 지역이 내가 쓰는 게 이거 말했어 내가 이 마트에서 지금 다시 말해서 내가 말했어.
So this enemy of afflictions is not the same as the worldly enemies, because once afflictions are expelled from their root, so once afflictions are together with their seeds are expelled from the root or uprooted, then they have no place to abide. They have no place to stay or no place to abide anymore. Thus, it is impossible for them to regain capability and then return and harm us. So, with an example to illustrate this is burnt seeds. So, a seed that is burned by fire. So, even if no matter how you provide conducive conditions for that seed to germinate, and it will never germinate at all, because the seed is already burned by fire. So even if you provide conducive conditions such as water, fertilizer, soil, and so forth for it to grow, it will never grow. So similarly, these enemy of afflictions, like worldly enemies. So if these afflictions are together with their seeds are expelled from their root or eliminated from the root, they will uh, it is impossible for them to it is impossible, or there is no conditions for them to grow, to regrow, or to grow again. There is no conditions for them to grow again. So just like a burnt seed.
다 원은 너무 이해를 다 원만 쓰지 받는 그 신기로를 쇼에 좀 받는 거는 우리 다 영어들 원와 너무 좋아하는 거 신기로를 중에 뭐 한다 들어봐 좀 받는 뭐 가대전에 또 우리 예세 와 본이 우리 예세 다 본이 원만 좋아해 영은 영시로 미기 봉서와 예 다이 예서 강도 누구한테 강도 이미 다니 그래서 도시 따라 좀 받는 거 세세
Next outline is the ability to abandon them. So them refers to afflictions. So the ability to abandon afflictions if we rely on effort, since they arise from erroneous cause. I repeat, the ability to abandon afflictions if we rely on effort, since they arise from erroneous cause. And under this outline is verse 46. It says, afflictions, when abandoned by the eyes of wisdom and dispelled from my mind, where will you go? Where will you dwell and return to harm me? Although this is so weak-minded, I have been reduced to making no effort. So this is similar to the previous verse.
다 공부들 나고 다 가만들은 거 이게 비자들 페이션이 막 수마리 되는 지역으로 이모들 나야 지금 거 말이야. 근데 앉아 너무 네 파사와니 슈자디 너무도 대상 대디요 말이야. 다 받을 수 있어 보시오. 그거 예 대디요 말이야. 이 너무 또 신기 그 너무서는 또 신기로 그거는 좋아해. 때문에 말이야. 신기로 뭐 지금 무엇이다. 때문에 말로 가서 때문에는 가서 뭐니 저기 공부하는 것이 이어가 되고 왜냐면 도만아 지역가 좀 뭐가 뭐 이나 당연히 지금요 통반하신 왜냐면 지역이나 내가 써요 말아 왜냐면 지금 이나 내가 써야 이거 말아 아 너무 좋아데 또 저와 신기로 된 거죠 다른 뭐 나와 다른 거 무슨 단지가 이거 말아 우리 까보러 다 되나시 다른 거 나와 또 신기로 봐 되나시로 다른 거 이거 말아 되나시 됐어 신기로를 중앙선다 내 대다와대 수익 공부는 본인도 비셔로 미시 본인도 비셔로 준비기 사비의 제가 봐봐라 그 메시지에 대방을 해서 대방식이 내고 요도면서 본인도 비셔로 되잖아 이모데 본인도 비셔로지 내모데기 사비의 제가 봐 사비의 제가 봐라 내가 지니 해서 그런 게 일어서니 그냥 봐봐 해서 보러 아무듯이
So previous verse it talks about these enemies of afflictions is not the same as the worldly enemies, and in this verse it talks about they have no place to. It further explains that they have once afflictions are abandoned, there will be no place for them to abide. So he says if the afflictions are expelled from the root, they do not they do they don't have the support for them to abide. since afflictions arise from an erroneous root. So in this verse, it says, where will you go? And then where would you dwell and return to me, right? So under this outline, it says that since these afflictions arise from erroneous cause, so the ability to abandon afflictions, if we rely on method, since afflictions arise from erroneous cause. So these afflictions are erroneous from, arising from erroneous cause. So it means that once we expel these afflictions, then there will be no place for them to abide. So it's just like erroneous cause is just like a erroneous or mistaken thoughts. So what does it mean by mistaken thoughts? Like for example, snow mountain is white in color, right? The white snow mountain. So it appears as blue snow mountain. So what snow mountain is white in color, but it appears as blue snow mountain. So the awareness or the thoughts to which it appears as blue snow mountains is a mistaken thought or is a erroneous thought. So similar to these, afflictions, they arise from erroneous thoughts. And since they arise from erroneous thoughts, so they are not stable or they are not solid. So as compared to something that is solid or stable, is something that you can see. It is something that exists. Yeah, so it's something that you see in reality, and it exists as you see in reality. So if something exists as you see in reality, then you cannot make it disappear, right? You cannot make it non-existent. So then those things that exist as you see in reality are solid, are stable. So however, these afflictions that arise from erroneous cause, so therefore they are not stable, they are not solid. So so how do we eliminate these afflictions and from their erroneous roots? Then we have to develop the eye of wisdom, realizing emptiness.
那刚才名目的做性别论的说是，这东西都是给了你的设备，你比如啊，东西都是给了你的都，看到了东西都是给了你的上面，我的设备在这个方案了，准备的放出的，这让你大概生的了，大概生的了，放下的让你生的呢，有个啥了，看到，让你生的了，没法说啥了吧，生的了把没法啥，让你生的了，没法把说是放出的，不看的多是。对抗的你把你是到了，人家生的有是有是个嘛的是，然后你之间的话，让你生的话，你把说把啥子你不常常接下来，人家过你把你让生的了，人家是对不对是？哎，有生的之类有是吧？
So with the eyes of wisdom, realizing emptiness, if we put effort in yeah. So with the eyes of wisdom, realizing emptiness, so if we put effort in abandoning these seeds, then once they are abandoned, then they are eliminated from one's mind. So they are eliminated from one's mind. So we have to relate it to ourselves. So if we put effort in abandoning these seeds with the eyes of realizing, with the eyes of wisdom, realizing emptiness, then once they are abandoned, then they are expelled from our mind. And then where will you go? So it links back to, where will you go? So it's a second line of the verse. Once it dispelled from my mind, so where will you go? So where will you stay or dwell? Return to harmony.
だって이거로 와. 나가 돈이 더 그렇게 되게 돼. 사베를 제가 바람 그 신 때나 봐. 사님에 봐서 빵 차이 길 요레스 빵 차이 길라 지요 봐 무슨 말이겠어. 얘다 이나 양서로 빵 차가 이나야. 맞죠? 네. 로션 봐. 맞죠? 배래로 와는데. 배래로 와다. 지루 배래로 써와다. 나 쉬쉬지 내려 써와도 와. 나 밤에 배래로. 안다 드디 와 밤에 와게. 정말 찌파 몇 봤어요. 전부 지야들라. 깔래가고 싶으시게 하세요. 나도 뭐 해야 되더라. 맞아. 저번에 매번 서서히 지용아 이거 받으냐. 또 매번 테마 담보 파지 써야라. 전부터 매번 해로 와긴 돈도 와대. 내가 아주 밤에 와긴 돈도 와. 네, 매네. 강의 시부절에 컨디션 도 되바이나 무슨 내가 지는 그래서 거의 내가 지는 거 내가 내가 그래서 거의 내가 내가 그래서 와 나도 봐 담보 티지 봐 사원이 내가 소트 봐이나 사원이 내 두고 말데 티지 사원이 내가 소아 레로 와도 거기 에 칼리시가리 샤스 또 뭐니 차대로 와 괜히 레로 이렇게 하는 거니 일 밤에 제 맞아 봐 대왕이 하나 좀 전혀가 지대 그래서
So we understand that with the eyes of wisdom realizing emptiness, these afflictions, together with their seeds, can be abandoned. And once they are abandoned, they will be eliminated or dispelled from one's mind. So while knowing that they can be abandoned, but we do not put in any effort in abandoning them. So why do we do not put in effort in abandoning them? Is because of we have fall under the control of laziness. So especially the laziness of procrastination and also non-conscientiousness. Because of falling under the control of laziness, non-conscientiousness. So while knowing that they can be eliminated, and once they are eliminated once they are eliminated from the root for one time or for once, and then they will not be able to harm us anymore. So while knowing this, we do not put in any effort. So and because of not putting any effort, due to falling under the control of affliction, due to falling under the control of laziness and non-conscientiousness, therefore they continue to come and harm us. Afflictions continue to come and harm us.
你说，到底我们应该，我怎么得看到，当年我的早晚的修呢，一点也比点看了呀，那就玻璃吧，而且它的玻璃也是对吧？玻璃类的，那早晚的修呢，对吧？早晚的修呢，点也比点看了呀，那就玻璃吧呢，这改点年我到底么打不了，他改点年我把那家让给距离继续，那让一这边呢，这几家玻璃我没说的，那打不了玻璃我是打不了，对吧？打不了我嘛。那早点嘛，原来了不到，我到那个了，没帮助了，没管了，没事，原来现在嘛，没那，那赶紧多，没写写，是吧？那得只要你多，那得嘛，等到写，是吧？你得学，是吧？
Next outline is once uprooted, there will be no support for them to abide at all, and it is appropriate to abandon them. So once I repeat the outline, once uprooted, there will be no support for them to abide at all, and it is appropriate to abandon them. So under this outline, again, someone may wonder, so since the afflictions are produced, since the afflictions are produced from one's continuum and exist inherently, I will not be able to abandon even one of them. So these questions or this someone may wonder. So since afflictions are produced from one's mind and exist inherently, so I will not be able to abandon even one of them. So and in relation to these questions, then verse 46, so verse 47, verse 2 line, he says, if these afflictions do not abide within objects, not in the collection of sense powers between the two nor elsewhere, then where do they abide and how do they harm all migrating beings?
那但是工作上就主要倒把的，但是我知道个么的，是吧？那得知道个么的，而且工作别单几天就干了，为啥？你那些把你的事业把稍微的这个放松，事业不的是呢，这里不是不的也是把老说话，把那他去接菜是吧？这个他去接菜的，早晚的你们的早晚的把兄弟点来吧，我的啥的，我这个那可以嘛呢？那给你问我的，然后一点就让听着的。 人都把是让你的这个让你的都把都把过年嘛的是打好的行业对吧？我等那的那是我把这个让一直的人物是有点些，是吧？那让一直的人物的，那那这我不太我买也是吧？我给让一直的人物也是的，那的来的，他你话呢？现在是的，你呢？让你嘛的，我们的哎，我就觉得我是干地的那个嘛的是呢。 我才上面给我放上的几点来的话，那那个人物把他们是属于了，让一就猪八戒，那个的让一就猪八戒，没那的，让那个也是他过，包括让这个人主要的也是不能够马的是， 또 말했어. 나도 이 좀 너무 지어래서. 제가 다들 말 내줘도 이런 거나 이런 거 이런 거. 너무 거는 zul어서 유나 네 말했어. 유나 저기 네 말. zul어서 유나랑 이 두가지 너무지. 여봐 이나. 나 좀 만나지. 술통어디 제가 영우지와 타는 거です. 나 좀 너무 꼰사로 와. 나 좀 너무 꼰사래. 나 영우지. 나 이거 영우지 여봐 이나. 아니 좀 영우지 여봐 이나. zul어서 유나 요거です. zul어서 유나 와. zul어서 유이게나 여봐 이나. 나 좀 봐도 그 술통어디. 얘기는 영우지는 영우들. 영우들 술통어 그랬어. 영우들 여봐 그랬어. 나 좀 봐도 영우들 내고 그랬어. 와. 이어서는 영우 나 좀 봐도 동 와. 영우지. 영우지. 요 그랬어. 영우지는 된 거 말했어 자 좀 봐. 나 좀 봐. sab영우 sab을 저 관사로 와. sab을 저 관사로. 아, 나 이게 영우지. 뭐 zul어서 이게 영우지 여봐 이나. 아까다 시 주소나 간다 아무시 비네 무지 요그래 비오스나 다도 말한테 주라서 막 그러네 우리 뭐 되게 그랬어 제가 그 무엇에 따지는 거야
So, yeah, so it says, so these afflictions do not abide inherently within objects such as forms, because if that were the case, then it would absolutely follow that even full destroyer would generate afflictions on seeing forms and so forth. So the question is, since those afflictions are produced in one's mind or produced from one's mind and exist inherently, so I will not be able to abandon even one of them. So this verse and this verse is different from the previous one. So these questions or these questions is different from the previous one. So because previous questions or poems they talk about is impossible for if those let's say if those afflictions are uprooted, then there will be no place for them to abide, and if there is no place to abide, then they will not be able to come back and harm us again. So we have included in that, right? So in relation to previous wonder or forms, so we have concluded that once these afflictions are uprooted or expelled from their roots or together with their seeds, then they will not be able to come back and harm us. So here, these questions here is different from the previous ones. So here, someone may wonder or think that afflictions produced in one's mind or produced from one's mind, and they assert that those afflictions exist inherently. So, and since they accept that those afflictions are established or exist inherently, so I will not be able to abandon even one of them. So and in order to understand, in order to answer these questions, then it says, so these afflictions do not abide inherently within objects such as forms. So it means that if afflictions exist inherently, then it must abide inherently within objects such as forms. However, these afflictions do not abide inherently within objects such as forms. So because if that were the case, then that it would absolutely follow that even full destroyers, so full destroyers are arhats. So it would follow that even full destroyer would generate afflictions upon seeing forms and so forth. So when we talk about full destroyers or arhats, so they have already abandoned afflictions. So if arhats are those who have already abandoned afflictions, and if you were to say that afflictions abide inherently within objects such as form, then it would follow that, or it would certainly follow that when full destroyers are hearts, and when they observe forms or when they see forms, then they would generate afflictions. So that's why it says that then it would certainly follow that even full destroyer would generate afflictions on seeing forms and so forth.
我等到的牛的这个主老说这边说，去做关的那种牛马的牛，那个一个牛马的，为了是我们操办呢，让这个牛的牛马的，是吧？我牛马的，为了是我们操办呢，把马的店，你牛去点，他牛去点，牛去点是他东马的钱的话， 이놈이 내 통이잖아. 아 미여장 이놈 말이다. 그래서 어디 이 연락서 보러 스쿼드에 와. 엄 처방이었으나 나랑 좀 너무 좋아했으나 난 일로지 엄마들 일로지 대 통이잖아. 아 미여졌던 영어 이 말이스 너무 말이스. 어디 한다 술아서 유난 엄비 처방아 메스.
So afflictions do not exist inherently within external objects such as forms. And then some may wonder, so these afflictions abide inherently within the collections of sense powers such as eyes. So someone may wonder, so they do not abide inherently within external objects, then they abide in the collections of sense powers such as eyes. So again, these afflictions do not abide inherently in the collections of sense powers such as eyes, because afflictions are not observed when one is thinking about the meaning of the modes of reality. So the meaning of the modes of reality, or the meaning of the modes of abiding, so it refers to the emptiness. So when one is thinking about the meaning of emptiness, afflictions are not observed. So even though the eyes are present.
오히려 너 대신 한 번도 우리가 대답이 번호문에서 다시 속에 그냥 이거 말해 이거 말해 어디 쳐봐 미국 몰라서 그냥 뭐 지어 뭐 뭐라 어디 쳐봐나 이거 말했어 그 온부 쳐봐도 여기 여기 반아야 이거 말했어 와 반아 이거 말해 다 대답 참아 델레히나 네봐 말했어 델레히바 지금 봐 말했어 와 지금 지금 봐 지금 말해 아 렌즈 자원에 봐 슈저들 나 이제 두 번째 아니로 와 아니 누워서는 내 봐지 반이야 말했어 나 이제 두 번째 되게 쓰는 거你把那邻居把年我的早晚的蔬菜的了，那让你这个年我去，把你那是要买的，那把现在虽然给要买的是了。
So afflictions do not abide within objects, those external objects such as form and so forth, and such as form, and then they do not abide in the collections of sense power as well, and then they do not abide between the two, between objects and the collections of sense powers, nor elsewhere. So then, where do they abide, and how do they harm all migrating beings? So they do not abide within objects, they do not abide within sense powers, they do not abide within, and they do not abide elsewhere as well. So then, where do those that were uprooted once and established inherently abide? And how do they harm all migrating beings? So once they are uprooted, then they have no place for them. There will be no place for them to abide.
我就是，那你嘛早晚是那次你这个是我那个多，觉得的确，你来你去把细节整个点，那你都到了，你要是，那把细节，修，这让你多，你不可能修，对吧？你必须多。
And then next two lines of verse 47, it says, "They are like an illusion, as I should dispel the fear within my heart and strive for the sake of wisdom. For no meaning, why am I harmed in hell and so forth?"
我到底感到的可能你们的呢？那让你这个东西的都让你这个那么，就么等到啊，第几话，让你这个，让你去这个，早晚呢，我们一样的几百，一人几百的工啊，一人几百的工多啊，让你这个，让那你们的呢，让你这个多把的是，我们引起的，让你这个那么，那我的话，那么就么等到啊，第一就是，你这个的，早晚呢，我们一样的一人几百的，也是话。Cepat pola karo kana poni to bishara poni to bishara cepat pola na to bishara umbali ke sama kan poni to bishara tera kan cepat pola gura e toni to bishara chine te nyemo point shi tela chamba che chamba ke da so chamba nyemo point la chamba da nyemo point ke pa yo hido teme ba teme ba wa mi wa ta na e da la nyawa la so ni so na se ma tu fa chebiles pela ma ni ki ga diles 이런 법이 있어요. 그냥 근데 인베이도 밤에 보니 이거 와이나 나와서 그냥 예수도 막 내가 찍으래
So in relation to this slide, it says that although these afflictions are empty of inherent existence, these afflictions appear to be established inherently or to be inherently existent. So these afflictions do not exist inherently. So while they are empty of inherent existence, while these afflictions are empty of inherent existence, they appear to be inherently existent. So even though they are empty of inherent existence, they appear to be inherently existent. So like an illusion. So thus, I should abandon to dispel the fear within my heart. So I should dispel the fear within my heart. And the way, because the fear arises while thinking we are not being able to abandon them because they exist inherently. So we have this fear in our hearts, thinking that I'm not able to abandon these afflictions because they exist inherently. So understand that they are empty of inherent existence, uh, but they appear to be inherently existent. So like an illusion. So then we abandon this fear, we dispel this fear in our hearts. How do you abandon or dispel this fear in our hearts? Then you develop a wisdom, realizing emptiness. With this wisdom of realizing emptiness, you will be able to abandon this fear. So, and then um, yeah. So then we should strive to abandon these afflictions by generating wisdom, realizing emptiness. So while I have the ability to abandon them, so why am I made to be harmed in the bad migrations, such as hell and other bad migrations, hell and so forth? So for no purpose, for no meaning at all. So while I have the ability to abandon them, so why am I harmed by these afflictions in hell, in bad migrations? So for no purpose. So it shouldn't be so. So it's not appropriate for me to be harmed by these afflictions in the bad migrations while I have the ability to abandon them. So in summary, Gesabje says that the past master have also explains that if the seeds are eradicated, then the afflictions will not abide in those thoughts. So Gesabje says that those past masters, they also explain in the same way. So when afflictions together with their seeds are dispelled or abandoned, then there will be no place for them. There will be no place in one's heart for them to abide.
시 속이나 니 말했어. 와, 시기 소리다. 아, 완비 초반아 뭐니 봐. 게다가 바나 뭐니 봐. 얘를 셴바나 니가 말해서 대상 영어데 제가 쓰면 니 그래서 근데 지금 우리 좀 영어지. 지금 말해.
키바 가리당 가리기 키바.
단단히 대화시 제발 잘해. 아마 대답 하셔. 다시 공도 영어가 싸우네 꽝차게 니가 말해서 그래서 영어도 싸베죠. 꽝차게 니가 말해서 뭐라. 단단히 어쩌다 저게 되게 랑이 쪽에 너무 지어래 봐야 말해서 나도 뭐라. 랑이 쪽에 너무 돼. 아나 이거 말해 돼. 이거 봐이나 시기 수수나 지어 그래. 돼. 연락해. konsanwa ni ya mares onbi soba na ya mares aji tu ni muji to onbi soba da shisu da bana ji yori de ro ni muji ni bas ye de le shen ba je ro tu ni muji ya mares ro mu de da.
So here we say that once afflictions together with their seeds are abandoned, then as an affliction, there will be no place for them there will be no place in our heart for them to abide anymore. So it means that it doesn't exist in one's mind anymore. So once afflictions and together with their seeds are abandoned. So this is one thing that they cannot be found, or there is no place for them. Then there is no place for them to abide in one's mind. So one thing is once they are abandoned in our mind, then there is no place for them to abide. So they cannot be found anymore in one's heart, in one's mind. So another and in relation to the previous questions or forms, saying that afflictions doesn't abide within the objects. Afflictions doesn't abide within the collections of sense powers. Affliction doesn't abide in between, and affliction doesn't abide other than that or elsewhere. So and what in this context, what it refers to is the inherently existent afflictions. So we have to understand that the difference between these two is they do not abide or they don't exist. So one is once they are abandoned, referring to the first case. First case is once they are abandoned, then they are not found or they are not found anymore. So another case is they are not found in within those objects, collections of sense powers between and elsewhere. Then it refers to the inherently existent afflictions.
나도 제가 가르치면서 자체 주야 내가 나랑 세디나 나도 내고 열어와 나도 너무 마방에 강가비랑 세디를 너무 대 봐야지다 좀 제대로 다시 보는 마음이 싫어와 랑 기준 너무데 랑 기준라 옆에 너무데 랑 기준 너무데 랑 세디나 열어와 랑 기준라 옆에 너무데 좀 제대로 해서 우마 랑 세나니 너무 열어서 선에 군조 보고는 시는 너무 좋아 되래다 아니 군조 보고는 시는 너무데 랑 세디나 열어간다 와然后现在人物的马帮新鲜了，那种是一点的有点，是吧？你们这样现在这样因为你工作光记得就是我，而且然后生意的呢，人当不了人物没法记得，人物的早晚的晚的没法记，就是在那你写对吧？
人当不了人物，
人当不了，然后生意呢，让一周的人物记没法记，也点在记起，当然给生意的呢，人稍微的话早晚的帮助别人给生意的呢没法记，你写，是吧？你老说啊。다 단단하서 나는 지가 나는 생각에 너무 여서 못 벌어서는 그길에 너무 대파 좀 벌어서 제거해서 못 벌어서 원래 요 말에서 요 말에서 수 투를 하니까 그래서 제가 시시고 와 그래서 하고 같이 그래 다 간다 다시에 다 단단한 그 생각이 너무 열에 너무 내사 열에 내사랑 생각해서 너무 열에서 와 너무 열어보라 뭐 빠신지는 너무 열어 아 근데 너무 매매 내사요 막 각kel 내사요 막서 뭐 불러서 송아서 와 불러서 자기 되게 마음 불러봐서 제발신 하고 봐지보다 너무 비싸게 제발 써야 빠사리 랑기 세나 되나 내가 각kel 내사요 말했어 와 랑기 생이 되나 싸베 저 빠사리 랑기 랑기 쳐봐나 네가 말해 랑기 배 생이 되나 네가 말해 와 랑기 라피티도 내야 말해 랑 컴피티도 내야 게 말해 와, 요 말이지. 사베 제 방사리. 아, 대마세 치치 갈라버리. 원비 처바네 요마 야시 스토라 요마세. 자기 주변 영어치. 원비 처바네 요마 시스나 요마세 되게 시고 들어와. 뭐 되게 시고. 그래서 제발. 아, 영문이랑 생기게 된다. 마바 신경을 열었네. 열어보다. 열어. 어디 시고라.
So he says, the first two lines, he says that if these afflictions do not abide within objects, not in the collections or sense powers between the two, nor elsewhere. So these two lines, he says that, we are saying that, ini di tanyi kunzo ge nyomo ne yo de wa ini kana ma nyomo de yo ma zawa ne yo ma nama ne ra shi tu nyomo de ro ha so de nyomo de ma bang yuan la yang di yang yo ma对那样有嘛 Yeah, so if these afflictions do not abide within objects nor in the collections of sense powers between the two nor elsewhere, so here it says, it says that afflictions do not abide within objects such as external form, and then afflictions does not abide within collections of sense powers between nor elsewhere, between the two nor elsewhere. So then one might think that afflictions do not abide in these objects, do not abide at all, do not exist at all. So, and then this is one thing. And another thing, then we say that, then you might think that previously we are saying that afflictions exist, and then that's why we need to strive, put in effort in abandoning them, right? So afflictions exist, right? So you have to understand the difference between these two. So in this context, when he says these afflictions do not abide within objects, nor in the collections of sense powers between the two, nor elsewhere. So here it refers to the ultimate afflictions. Ultimate afflictions also means another translation for this is afflictions that exist inherently. So ultimate afflictions or inherently existent afflictions do not abide within objects, do not abide within collections of sense powers between the two or elsewhere. It doesn't abide. It doesn't exist. And when the second one, we talk about the afflictions in our mind, then we don't fall under their control, and then we have to put effort in abandoning them, right? So it refers to conventional afflictions. So this is the difference. So one refers to conventional afflictions, another one refers to ultimate afflictions. So here in these first two lines of verse 47, it refers to ultimate afflictions. In other words, inherently existent afflictions. So they do not abide within these afflictions and so forth. So, and however, afflictions exist, right? So conventional afflictions exist. Until you abandon them, they exist. Where do they abide? They abide in our mind. So therefore, the one that we need to abandon, the afflictions that we need to abandon in our mind is the conventional afflictions. So it's a conventional afflictions. So does afflictions exist? Yes, it exists until you abandon them. So once you abandon those afflictions, then they no longer exist in one's continuum. So, and then between the two or not elsewhere, it refers to ultimate afflictions that never exist. Even if you have not abandoned the conventional afflictions in one's continuum, they never exist.
명문이 서비스 좀 왔다는데 방사나 명문에서 그때요 말이에요. 사람이 생기게 들어와. 사람이 생기는 명문에서 그때 들어오는 요 말이에요. 이 연다도 되지와 명문이 뭐 봐봐이나 명문에서 그때 사람이 생기는 연습이 요랬다. 명문이 뭐 매봐이나 명문이 내사게 요래서 기다리고 있어. 와 요랬어. 명문에서 요래는 생기는 데요. 그럼 생기는 명문에서 내사 때 그거 찬스다. 명문에서 그거 차대. 그리고 내사 차대. 我放下马路啊，然后但是结果其他时候，哪里都给人的那边对的，生意对的，你那是说话的，我应该是要是要嘛，是他的，他的早你要嘛，随便过来要嘛了，然后你这个年务些过来要嘛了，然后你这个年务些话的，没让你这个年务早你要嘛了，然后你这个年务早你没在的， 좀 저번에 막 시수소 바와이나 바람이 요 말에서 들려주죠. 그래서 좀 발라서
And so we have to understand that there is no place for them to abide. The difference between these two is one, we talk about afflictions. There is no place for afflictions to abide is those afflictions together with their seeds if they are abandoned. So if once they are abandoned, then there is no place for them to abide. So it refers to the afflictions that exist in one continuum. So until you abandon those afflictions, there is a place for them to abide, right? So, and the place for them to abide is one's continuum. So until you abandon them, there is place for these afflictions to abide, which is one's mind. So afflictions, and once these afflictions are abandoned, then there will be no place for them to abide. So there is one way, there is one explanation in relation to there will be no place for afflictions to abide. So once they are abandoned, so there's one the first explanation, and a second explanation in relation to in relation to this verse 47. Then is the inherently existent afflictions, the afflictions that exist inherently. So, and when we talk about these afflictions that do not abide within objects in the collections of sense powers between the two nor elsewhere, then in this context, it refers to the afflictions that exist inherently. So, and when we took, and these afflictions that exist inherently never exist at all, never ever exist at all. So since they never exist, then there is no place for them to abide. So they do not abide within objects, collections of sense powers, two, and so forth. So we have to understand the difference between these two.
내가 너도 내가 한번 내문데 해야 되는 말이 나한테 너도 지대하라고 내가 내가 한번 내문데 교대야 되는 말이야. 아니 뭐지? 뭐 다른 선택이 되다. 뭐 이래서 내가 마마나 이게 뭐지? 좋아. 어디니 제발. 다른 선택이 되다. 싸웠네. 이게 다시 틀려야게 이거는 지나 요 말에서 그 이게 두고 말이지 여러 영문 사ber que pensa dice que cosa ya ha pues ya da todo son va eso lo puedo decir da da di duro di
So then Gisela summarized all these explanations into 3 points. The first one is ultimate afflictions, and ultimate afflictions do not exist anywhere. Ultimate afflictions do not exist anywhere. And the afflictions that exist in our mind are the afflictions in our mind until they are abandoned that exist in our mind. Afflictions until they are afflictions in one's mind until they are abandoned exist in our mind or abides in our mind. So second point. And the third point is previously we say that those worldly enemies they will not return.
집에 들어가시 이거 또 이거는 쓸래야 때 말해서 아
That's all.
뭐 서비스 제가 방사
That's all. And then and previously we talked about the example of worldly enemies. So and then those worldly enemies they will gain power and then they will return. And however, in relation to afflictions, unlike those worldly enemies, afflictions once they are uprooted or once afflictions and their seeds are abandoned, then they will not return. So the third point is the previous example is talking about the worldly enemies, and then they will gain power, and then they will return and harm us, right? So afflictions, unlike worldly enemies, so once afflictions together with their seeds are abandoned, they will not return.
뭐야 나도 속 시사지 그 별들도 다 맞아 리스크가 별들도 와 그래도 안 돼. 그러니까 nom더 지기 시바이 나버 주기 치도 내버셔 신빙 어머니는 매다기 아 지기 내버서 봐 가라 했어. 그래서 지도가 어디만 비치야지.
So next outline is summary. Under this outline is verse 48. Therefore, having thought about this, I should make effort for the sake of completing the trainings explained. If the doctor's instructions are ignored, how will a patient in need of treatment be cured by the medicines? So having thought about the above explanations in many ways, so above explanations refers to those explanations on how to practice in relation to in relation to the relevant topics. So having thought about the above explanation in many ways, then I should make effort in cultivating conscientiousness for the sake of accomplishing the minds of enlightenment and trainings explained above. So in this topic, in this fourth chapter is a chapter on cultivating conscientiousness, right? So we must cultivate or rely on conscientiousness for the sake of accomplishing bodhicitta and the trainings, and also guarding those trainings and so forth, as taught by the Buddha, as taught by the teacher. So and for example, if the doctor's instructions are ignored, how will a patient definitely in need of treatment be cured by the medicines? It will not be cured. So if a person is having a serious illness, and then we see doctors, right? And when doctors says that, oh, you should eat this medicine, and then you shouldn't eat that, and so forth, then we should listen to the instructions given by the doctors, follow accordingly. So if not, then we will not be cured. If we do not follow the time and so forth to eat the medicine and so forth, then we will not be cured, right? So similarly, so we should be conscientious. We should rely on conscientious. So we rely on conscientiousness also means that we have to try our best to follow we should try our best to accomplish the the class of virtuous actions. We should try our best to accomplish the class of virtuous actions, and then we should try our best to not commit any class of non-virtuous actions. So that is the summary of relying on conscientiousness. So try your best to perform or to do those virtuous actions or to follow the class of virtuous actions, and then try your best not to commit any non-virtuous actions.
So calculation nempa payo es very big wa dan digit mana ra mo ko ala nempa da one digit nyo ba da tawa sin 당기 주진이 이거가 모습들이 내가 다 내가 받아와 제받아 요아야 뭐냐고 보다 배워 제받아 가르라 알리듯이나 아유 엄마라 알리듯이 와 뭐요 엄마 그래서 내 기비 따도 받아 내면 내 기바 갖다 뒤따도 와요다 내면이 제거를 했어 하여튼 좋아 this is.
So I should put effort in abandoning the afflictions according to the teachers, according to the teachings of the doctor, which is the teacher. According to the teachings of the teacher, the great doctor. So and then it says, then it says, freedom from being solid by misdeeds. So solid by misdeeds in in another translation for this can be freedom from the dirt of faults. So what are attachment, anger, and ignorance in one's continuum, and non-generation and increase of virtue, the freedom from being solid by misdeeds, and the non-degeneration and increase of virtue. So what do they depend on? Do they depend on the definite cultivations of conscientiousness? So freedom from the dirt of faults and the non-degenerations of virtue and the increase of virtue, they depend on the definite cultivations of conscientiousness. Thus, the wise should always have conscientiousness. So then the next outline is title of the chapter. Title of the chapter. So the fourth chapter on teachings on conscientiousness from engaging in the deeds of a bodhisattva. So the title of the chapter is the fourth chapter on teachings on conscientiousness from engaging in the deeds of a bodhisattva. And then the commentary says, this is the commentary on the fourth chapter on teachings on the fourth chapter on teachings on conscientiousness from the commentary called engaging as entrance for the conqueror's children. So from the commentary called entrance for the children and entrance for the conqueror children, the explanations on engaging in the deeds of a bodhisattva. So this title of the chapter is the fourth chapter on teachings on conscientiousness from engaging in deeds of a bodhisattva. And then the commentary says this is the commentary on the fourth chapter on teachings on conscientiousness from the commentary called the entrance for the conqueror's children, an explanation on engaging in the deeds of a bodhisattva. And this completes the fourth chapter.
Yeah, 레오나바가 된다 그냥도 시기서 와도 된다 대시우로 와. 다 시기인데 간다 가서 예. 난주시 세 요소 송자 다 장주시 멤버 장주시 세 제리스 나서 간다. 다 장주시도 넘발라. 근데 제때 간다 넘바다 망가와. 근데 장주시 딜라자다 망가와. 예. 그래서 막 뭐냐봐. 야, 너무 진게. 다 시기에서 와더래. 와. 시기 정말 시기에서 와도 가서 전 시기에서 와도 가서 나지 비마도 모비시도 이마도 신경 가서 신경 공부 땡고 디야 제도 진행이 와지 참모 마유한 제도 그래서 전시기에서 다 전시기에서 가서 신이 집어도 맞아 딱 가서 게이셔 누가냐래 안 지어봐야 창상다 이마 시기에 대한 이마 시기에 대한 개체 무시다 와 이마 시기에 대한 가서 세대 누정화도 방금 로마지게 샤워년 방도 로마지게 와 로마지게 로나랑서 하고게
샤워년바
로마지바 로그도나 하고네 야 뭐로에 서서 제도야 이거요 어디 순간 한 가지 시기 시우와
So next chapter is chapter 5 on guarding introspection. So it talks about introspection. So when we uh, talk about introspection, so we have discussed these introspections for vigilance in the chapter in the context of calm abiding. So in the context of calm abiding, we talk about we need to cultivate mindfulness and introspection or vigilance so that we will not so that we can stop those obstacles from arising. And then, so when we, even though it's discussed in the context of calm abiding, and however, whatever practice that we engage, it needs these mindfulness and introspections as well. So, and basically, these mindfulness and introspections, uh, as- uh, uh, these mindfulness and introspections do not let our mind goes towards those negative activities or negative actions. It doesn't let these two, mindfulness and introspection, do not let our mind uh, go towards the directions of negative actions, or do not go towards negative actions. So if once uh, if our mind uh, goes towards negative activities or negative actions, then it will stop us from, it will alert, it will aware of it, and then it will stop us from continuing going to the negative actions. So it will withdraw one's mind from that negative actions. So when we talk about this guiding introspections, and then in this context, it also says that once we generate a bodhicitta, and then we adopt bodhisattva vows, and then once after adopting bodhisattva vows, then we do not transgress those bodhisattvas precepts, and then we do not cause those bodhisattva precepts to degenerate.
到底我们谈到的这些物多，大场就是生建立，那个什么生建立，那老把老个的就是的些物多，场就生建设的，人家老把的老古人老个的就是的，那没些结巴场就讲到偏全部是他的也是吧，人家明白场就生结巴自己偏全部的人呢，啊，老把如果你不买些饭，那上去做事嘛的，上去做这个嘛的，啊，没些结巴自己买的话，讲到场就是的懂吧？哪里？那懂吧？哪里？讲到对。也是就结果新竹做了把最近的老古的是，也是结果发现多了最近的老古的是，马老板呢那上街头马的是，是吧？马老板上街头马的是，老古的是个，今年的交不了，真的个老古的是，真的如果你不小古的是，今年的交不多了，就是上家路是个，就是不行。
So after generating bodhicitta, So after generating bodhicitta, we have to train in those precepts, or we have to learn those trainings. So the reason for necessary learning the trainings after generating bodhicitta is, so although merely generating aspiring bodhicitta is very beneficial, and however, if we do not practice those precepts, if we do not practice those precepts, bodhicitta precepts, or if we do not practice those Bodhisattva deeds, such as 6 perfections, then we will not be able to attain enlightenment. So even though even the mere generations of aspiring bodhicitta is very beneficial, however, if we do not learn those training, then it is impossible for us to attain enlightenment. So from the King of Concentration, thus we should learn those training, or thus we should train in those deeds. So from the King of Concentration Sutra, we also say that therefore one should take those practice as essence.
他的国内爸爸的都是现在国内谈过的现在对吧？看他的今年的交更多的现在就是啊，这个你不要不如果娘的要不结果呢，他做不上去的你搞嘛的是，做不上去的头部的是你搞嘛的是，如果娘的要不结果你搞嘛的是，对吧？那国内来嘛，就国内谈过的现在都讲究生了呗，讲究生把给当多了，新门多啊，新的，那当你新把老师如果娘来了，不知道就准备几个的是。 누가 매번도 장기 도구 말이 성장이 들어와. 누가 매번나 뭐 이거 년에 맞이 벌어 자주 못 봐서 그냥 누가 뭐 제거야 가르쳐 그래서 누가 뭐 지어야 돼 누가 년에 지어야 돼 간다 간주식의 동바선에 이 라바 야시 지어봐 신고라 라고 해서 된다 너희들이 생겨와
생기도
자기식의 동바선 자기식의 동바선에 야시 지어봐 신고라 라야 돼 신고라 라야 돼 가서 이제 딱 그래마다 그래야 된다 너희들이 해서 와 자기식의 동바선 야시 지어라 라야 돼 벌써 그러다 라야 돼 가더라
And also from the second stages of meditation, then he also says that if we practice properly, then it is not difficult for us to attain enlightenment. And whereas if we do not practice properly, then it is impossible for us to attain enlightenment. So in brief, what we need to do is after generating bodhicitta, after adopting the bodhisattva vows, we have to learn those trainings. And what are those trainings? Those trainings are Bodhisattva Deeds. As in brief, is 6 perfections. So we have to train in those 6 perfections, Bodhisattva Deeds.
어디 올려서 니 말에 다시 내려오는 거지 상지 문제가 된다 기로와 다시 이거 어떤 뭐 사발이냐도 문제를 뭐 쉬서와 주소 다시 주법이 나는 이 생각이 그래서 뭐라서와 뭐로 공지 주거래 근데 다시 내려오는 거지 상지 뭐 맞다기 되는 것이
So next, it talks about So enlightenment will not be attained through practicing method and wisdom separately. So enlightenment will not be attained through practicing method and wisdom separately. So in our usual meditation, in our usual meditation, then we always talk about we have to practice method and wisdom together indivisibly. So then this is the meaning.
다 된다 대로 간다 상지 비비 터들라 간다 네 그리고 다시 내려와라 그 상지 문제가 된바 세워야 다 된다 지시고래 나서 chanchu se jibu gon me sanji ji komba to wa ji je gwe ya to to ya yi wo ma to du yo wa to du yo ma ya de ma chanchu se na sa na ma to ko ni ta ne be gona aya ke ji bo gon de wa ina ya sanji komba to de to du yo ma ma to sanji ji komba to wa chanchu se pi yon de de ke mano arisna mano a cha de ta de mano a cha na de mano a cha de ina na ni ma sa wa cha ma so 나한테 만화를 해서 그런데 그 시는 오늘 선지 부터 요사 근데 왜냐 저기 만화 찾아 만화 야 만화를 돼 창상화 잘 이차요 와 창상 뭐 잘. 내 맞춰서 저 타기를 원래 봐 가만히 봐 시서 거기 두고 나는 무슨 거 고래 상관도 와서 고지와 따바 히로 와 어디 애들 진짜 뭐 와
So what does it mean by enlightenment is not will not be attained through practicing method and wisdom separately. So it means that if we only cultivate bodhicitta, then in the hope of attaining enlightenment, then we will not be able to attain enlightenment. And even in the hope of attaining enlightenment, then we only meditate on emptiness. Without generating bodhicitta or cultivating bodhicitta, then enlightenment is again impossible enlightenment is impossible as well. So then someone may wonder, so in order to achieve the state of enlightenment, is cultivating bodhicitta the unmistaken method or not? Then yes, in order to attain enlightenment, cultivating bodhicitta is an unmistaken method. However, mere cultivations of bodhicitta is incomplete. It is an incomplete method. So, in brief, what we are trying to say is, so we have to conjoin our practice with the 6 perfections.
特别타신 거, 타시 돈이 타신 거, 타시 돈이 타신 거다. 니게의 장주시 뭔가 타신 거 좋아. 타시 돈이 타신 거다. 니게의 장주시 타신 거지. 타신 거지. 예, 대상 맞아 봐. 난다도 쉬우지. 그 장주시가 내가 장주시 생에서 되니까 내가 돈 되니까 뭐. 그 장주시는 거 나중에 뭐 쉬서라 와. 그 장주시다. 난다 장주시니. 민지 탑 민지 전보다 그 유세가 된다 장주시니. 뭐라 때니 Wow,
So in order to attain the state of enlightenment, which is the omniscient exalted wisdom, then in order to attain this, then we attain, sorry, uh, yeah. So enlightenment, when we talk about enlightenment, which is the omniscient exalted wisdom. So it arises from the root of compassion, and it arises from the cause of bodhisattva. So, and this omniscient exalted wisdom is completed with method. This omniscient exalted wisdom or enlightenment, it arises from the root of compassion, it arises from the cause of bodhisattva, is completed with method. So we talk about great compassion, we talk about conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. So these two, yeah. So together, with both of these bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta, then one will attain the omniscient exalted wisdom. So this is the meaning of it. So after generating bodhicitta, and then we adopt bodhisattva vows, right? So after adopting bodhisattva vows, then we have to learn those training and practice properly, right? And if we do not practice, if we do not learn those practice properly, then we will not be able to attain the state of enlightenment. So in so we talk about we need to train in those bodhisattva deeds, or if we need to learn those training after taking bodhisattva vows, then if we were to condense those precepts or those trainings, then it can be condensed into 6 perfections as stated in the ornament for the Mahayana Sutra. So if we condense those trainings or those precepts, then they can be those precepts refers to those bodhisattva deeds or those bodhisattva deeds or those trainings. Then it can be condensed into 6 perfections. So as stated in the ornament for the Mahayana Sutra. So since these bodhisattva deeds are condensed into 6 perfections, so next we are going to talk about how to these 6 perfections.
我他这个是那几个嘛，你都能做这些，希望你拍出个比较厉害。我做了对的，按照是说拍出的，我做了老远来是说拍出的，当年我这三万都拍出的嘛，当年的人些我说，我们做的等于必须批过去了，我们做了对的，我做了对的，我做了对我做了年龄了对的，他是说拍出的当年这些我说，那没做了年龄对的，是说拍出的当年我也是我，那个是也是我们那把墙壁是松，但是那个是松的话，也就是也是就把弄的讲过的话。那就是就把老的讲呢，就是去东巴爽，那就是东巴当我是就是就把老了啊，那老啊，就是朋友我学得了啊，就是senso 是吧？那些书呢，那就是就把老的讲，那就是就把老的讲呢，那这就是就是东巴水，是吧？就是东巴水，那就是东巴浪呢，就是就把老了的，老啊，我当老的，老要看老的是呢，我当老子的了。真的，我要多的人，我开始做的嘛，那是真的嘛是，对吧？
So first we generate aspiring bodhicitta, then we then we develop the wish to train in Bodhisattva deeds. We develop the wish, or we learn the wish to train in Bodhisattva deeds. Then we adopt Bodhisattva vows. Then we practice Bodhisattva deeds. So it is an order or a sequence. It's like this. So first we generate aspiring bodhicitta, then we learn the wish to train in Bodhisattva deeds, then we take Bodhisattva vows, then we train in Bodhisattva deeds. So what are these Bodhisattva deeds that we need to train? Then when it's condensed, then they are condensed into 6 perfections. So in order that so then we are going to talk about how to train in these 6 perfections. Then when we talk about this, how to train in these 6 perfections, then first we talk about definite enumeration. Definite enumeration also means definite in number. So first we talk about definite in number. So then the number of perfections is specified or definite in 6 in relation to higher state and definite goodness.
那这里这底下没得话，那点小的，以前那个做开全部是在一些是的是吧？那不是就是老子的，嘛这里需要的是吧？那得他妈的，年代进来，往往不这个其实，以前那个这个这个嘛开全部是在一个是吧？就老早这个是吧？
So we are going to stop here, and next class we are going to talk about how to train in 6 perfections. So so please as you continue to pay attention in coming class. So we will stop here today.
把我都给找那个这点把就把这我就，我刚刚就没做，这个经济当把啥时候那是有，点把当中一点不在意的地方，在把没修，结果当，你看到，这就那么是把它没去，那样是准备拍下来，看到，点把当中一点都不，这就是我点鸡蛋，是吧？吐空气，是把给面听着元气，你记得吗？是我接鸡蛋，点就是，那当然咱们有六个了，他妈的就是把你多呢，看到把心里元气的。 parte da minha nossa batente, que sempre deixa na seco, a tona se de bota, santi de baba ne de toa, de deixa de bota za uma chis.
We conclude with dedication. We dedicate these roots of virtue to the flourishing of Buddha Dharma and to the excellent happiness of all sentient beings. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to all upholders of Buddha's teaching, mainly His Holiness the Dalai Lama, to live beyond long, to have excellent health, and may all their enlightened activities and holy wishes be accomplished instantaneously and spread in all directions. We also dedicate these roots of virtue to our beloved teacher, Kyabshin Lama Zopo Rinpoche, the unmistaken reincarnations of Rinpoche has So the Rinpoche has already taken rebirth. So may the unmistaken reincarnations of Rinpoche continue to turn the wheel of Dharma for the sake of teachings and sentient being, so that we will have the opportunity to receive found teachings from Rinpoche again. We also dedicate these roots of virtue for world peace, and may excellent happiness prevail in the world. May wars, conflicts, disaster, natural disaster, and so forth pacify immediately. And may those who pass away, especially those who pass away due to these unconducive conditions, may all their negativities accumulated since beginningless time be pacified immediately and quickly achieve the state of enlightenment.
别给我的天堂主我天老上天堂谁把解决楼上张我一对面你玻璃中随时说天主神装人波结马结巴那记住结结巴娘巴没马样更多陪我说加别把人知道前把那更多上坡给啊对心对对天接受到楼接有我知道当接着多我同意到我的佛结马结巴那记住结结巴娘巴没马样我也更多陪我说大把人波结马结巴那记住结结巴娘巴没马样我也更多陪我说你接受到就别让这些事情看见的流云看那边某些是接受了把这些事情的就说那边的保留吧他上面个人从面天这边做了把这所有些的就说
那种不精确的什么地址下来的什么装下一什么话
Rinpoche is here, right?
对
So for Rinpoche's long life, for Rinpoche's long life, we are going to recite Midsummer prayer.
每次一定就
也
是
是这边去广播讲不要去广播里边是成为了感情里边这边从路上准备下老师话的这边是为这些人是这边的广播讲不要去广播里边成为了感情里边这边广播这个了多的里面是为这些人是这边的广播讲不要去广播里边是成为了感情里边是广播准备下老师话的这边是这些人是广播讲不要去广播里边成为了感情里边这边是广播准备下老师话的这边是这些人是这边广播讲不要去广播里边成为了感情里边这边是广播准备下老师话的这边是这些人我在这边老师话的因为这一点的情况广播怎么样我的就是什么大概这个的在这边老师话的因为这一点的情况推进我讲不要多下来说的因为这一点为这边我讲不要多我们就是上一代感觉就是我在这边老师话的因为这一点因为这边我讲不要多我们这个别做到老师他比较老师放在这儿有多人性格的，大家给我好。今天是我第一次要注意小的时间，包括点入